Hey, Carol, thank you for coming in today again. And you have such a marvelous background. You're continually contributing in business for good in so many different ways. And you also are very intertwined with making positive contributions across the world in your local community, in your region, and more. And always in leadership, but also working with teams. I mean, you do it all, right? So it's quite marvelous. And you pivoted in your career many times too. So you're very agile as the market changes. So just to update to the audience, and I think what we'll do, we already did an interview already, and I actually did a Forbes piece where you're in the interview. So we'll link that into this interview. So then so there's already some context. So we already have some background and so on. And so then this becomes like a continuation, right? Like a part.
Okay.
Okay, so Carol, since we last talked, what has happened?
Well, I guess almost in a way, Stephen, that made me think of what's been happening in the world. So obviously a lot has happened, but for myself and for the groups that I've been working with that you're also involved with our YPO efforts and the Sustainable Business Network, I think most significantly what's happened is that we're starting to see our actions and the language that we're using being used throughout the organization and also being echoed by the senior leadership of YPO, as well as other subgroups of YPO, other business networks inside of YPO. So, I am a person that feels like things kind of come in waves, and I love that description that it rolls up onto the beach and then it pulls back out. We've got a big wave, a productive, impactful wave, not a destructive wave, that is washing over YPO as an organization. And I think I've always believed that our members want to be a positive impact in the world, but I don't think that they understood how intertwined that was sometimes in stakeholder capitalism. I'll jump to that, to stakeholder capitalism.
So just for the audience who aren't familiar with YPO, I'll just do a really quick summary. So it's an organization founded in 1950, currently sits at about 35,000 leaders of businesses and NGOs and so on. So it's quite diverse, actually. And they're all notable, and they make magnificent contributions in all sorts of different ways. They're across over 150 countries. There's about 500 chapters. They do close to 10 trillion in annual revenue, something like employing over 22 million. And so really an amazing organization, very empowering, kind of peer-to-peer empowering organization. And several years ago, they came up with this idea of 3.0, YPO 3.0, to kind of have a broader impact because the organization is so private. And Carol is one of the top leaders in leading that change and making all of the contributions together as an ensemble and individually and by region to really make a difference in a number of different ways. So, Carol, did I miss anything in that sort of quick synopsis?
Beautiful explanation. I think I would add that what we have as a common thread is a mutual respect when you're introduced to someone on the other side of the world that you may not know, who may not be in your industry or from your cultural background. What the organization, though, does for us is it brings a mutual respect, and that drives a common language between business owners speaking or business leaders speaking with each other. And I've been a member for more than 20 years now and really feel that we have a connectivity that can allow us to impact positive change in the world as we work alongside governments and NGOs. So primarily these are for-profit industry.
Yeah, and it just kind of reminds me, you have the YPO Next Generation, which is like the children, and
Right.
it's about nearing 25,000. I think it's about 22,000. And then you have the partners, the spouses and partners of members, which is probably equivalent. So you're a pretty big community.
It's a very big community, and it's one of the things that makes it unique, that I think feeds the soul of our membership, is that it's not just about your business, but it's about you as a person. So it brings in your spouse, partner, it brings in programming for your children. So it doesn't take you away from the business and your family life. It actually brings it all together in one. So yeah.
Before we did an interview last year, and this is before the Global Impact Summit. And so now you can tell, or hopefully you can share some of what happened at Global Impact Summit, because again, it's private, but maybe some of the things you can share from that. And you were co-chair. So maybe you can update what happened there and what's going to happen going into the new year, 2024. And then we'll go into the other aspects, because you're the chair of the Sustainable Business Network. So we could talk about that and some of the other sort of areas that you're involved with.
Okay, well, the Global Impact Summit was frankly a small group of people, if you will, in relation to the size of the large organization. I think we were 160, 170 people all told that gathered in Costa Rica last February. And one of the pleasures of belonging to a group, and I think this is true for anyone, but inside of such a large organization, this brought together 170 like-minded people, where we really wanted to be focused on some proactive outcome. Now, I don't know if we achieved that exactly, Stephen. I think, you worked with us on this, and I think we all had high aspirations to have a tangible outcome. I think the most tangible outcome of that gathering, and it was about a 3.5-day gathering, was the commitment to continue to work and to both support each other's businesses and to bring the message to a wider audience. When I talk about that wider audience, I spoke of this in our first interview, but I just want to use it as kind of a baseline. I don't think I understood that my now 30-year-old business was an impact business. I don't think I understood that I was a stakeholder capitalist rather than a stockholder capitalist. But I'm a win-win. My language would have been win-win. And I personally love nothing more than getting up from a table where everyone feels a level of satisfaction and feels proud about what happened at that table. And I believe that that is at the core of most business owners, frankly, and business leaders. And so it's really stepping into that and sharing that feeling. I'm physically, bringing it out. I think that's what the GIS did for those 170 people. We all got to kind of go like this, and then we went off into our communities and into the YPO communities. And so it's multiplying. It's simply multiplying, where again, I'm now hearing this language from our senior leadership, as well as my employees and people that I interact with just on a daily basis.
I was struck from our first interview that, people get hung up on words, right? And yet people want to do good.
Yeah.
And so can you share maybe more insights on that because there was this Global Impact Summit, and there's this thing called the UN, the YPO UNGA. A little bit of it went public as well. So
right.
Do you find that language is changing, or what? What are some additional insights, so that people don't get hung up on language, right?
Right, because that's one of the things that I think you and I bonded on, is that language is such a challenge, and we can take a word like impact or sustainability, and especially for those of us in North America where those words have been politicized. I'm not sure. I think my answer right now, Stephen, to your direct question, have I seen a change? I'm not sure that I've actually seen a change in a common understanding. I do feel like there is a broader acceptance that it's not a political statement. And again, I think that I'm speaking to the people that I interact with. But I just, before this conversation, just got off of a meeting where we were, it's the Sustainable Business Network, which is a subgroup of YPO where people from all industries and all backgrounds, and we're very global, come together to support business as a force for good. And we literally, the 12 of us on the screen who have been working together now for 2 years, debated the word impact and sustainability. And I think I'm drawn to sustainability, frankly, and I think part of it is it's a personal thing. For me, impact doesn't presume that it's good or bad. Impact can go both directions. That's just me personally. Sustainability has longevity and legacy to it. It has a tomorrow to it for me. And so I think that's why I'm drawn to the word sustainability. And then I think part of it, we have to listen to the market. What does the market want? Which word do they like more? I think right now, impact is sort of the word that's out there that's being used across industry, media outlets, everything. And so I can bow to that and use the word impact, but I do think it's personal how you take it in from your life experience.
And then we'll stick on the YPO area for just a bit, and then we'll go to your business as well. What are you looking forward to within this organization and the work that you're doing for the remainder of the year and into next year? Are there things that we should be looking for, or that you're pretty excited about, and that you could talk about publicly?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I don't think that there are going to be things, Stephen, that will happen in a point in time, or there'll be some announcement. But I think, as I'm excited about the broadened conversation of impact and sustainability across YPO, what I've been observing is that, and this could be generationally. I'm at the end of the baby boomers, and I think we just had a bubble. You join YPO before the age of 40 or 45, and then sort of a generation of members moves through the group. And so the last 10 years, in my opinion, has been focused on the topic of from success to significance. And that is probably because many of us are moving into, the baby boomers have moved through the system, and our businesses, we're still here, they've succeeded, and we're looking for that next level of significance. What I think is happening for our membership is it's no longer about the individual leader and what is my significance, but we're now looking at what is our business and what is the significance of what good can our business do. Middle market companies come in all shapes and sizes, and we can't overlook the need to make payroll. It can be, you and I just talked a little bit about, I love to bring things down to the most basic level at times. Making payroll can be part of a leader's, focus. And I think we're having dialogue about, in our making of payroll, what good are we doing out there in the world?
And you've done that, and you continue to do it. And I guess we can then shift to maybe your business. I mean, you pivoted multiple times in reaction to the marketplace. You're a leader. You open up a particular niche or an area in the marketplace that isn't addressed. You conquer that area, and then the really big players enter in and become sort of commoditized. And then you say, well, I'm going to have to move to another area. And you've done that several times. So can you do sort of a quick reminder to the audience of how you were the one who kind of innovated multiple times in different sectors, and then you moved to the next sector? So
happy to. And I think that probably that gives you that connection to why I like that word sustainability, because we when we move from a niche, when we transition from a niche, it's not necessarily because we want to. It's because to survive, to be sustainable, we have to move on. So my background is in the public finance sector in the US. And we provide capital we monetize reoccurring revenue streams from U.S. public entities. And so really what we do is we help smaller providers, manufacturers, and service providers where their customers are some sort of U.S. Governmental entity. And when I started in the business now almost 40 years ago, and when I started my company, Tatonka Capital, it was avant-garde. What we were doing, I'm in Denver, Colorado, and it was the Wild West, wild and crazy, like the market does. Over the last 30 years, it very much commoditized. And what used to provide a premium for taking a perceived risk in that market has gone away. It's not a risk-intensive marketplace. And so the large institutions, the large banking institutions have completely moved in, and it's a volume game. And we're not a volume provider. We like to be compensated for the value that we bring. And that's really where that change happened. So to be sustainable and sustain the business, we've moved through different versions of that business. And we pivoted now almost 8 years ago. So I can't, time flies, but we pivoted into one of our vertical sectors of education. And we provide district level services to independent charter schools, which are schools of choice here in the US. They're public schools, but they have some autonomy.
And what are some of the lessons you're learning now in that work with the education services that you're doing? And you're a public benefit corporation as well. So
we are. I say repeatedly that the education industry is far more challenging than the finance industry ever was. And it's probably at the front of it. I can now look back and see that I was a level removed from dealing with individuals. I was dealing with corporations. And so there was a barrier there between me personally and the individuals that were being served. Today, we're dealing with, teachers, instructors, administration, parents, and children. And so we're right there in the mix of it. I think one of the challenges in the United States, and maybe this will resonate in other countries, but there's so much negativity around our public education. And I feel like I hear it from the top. I hear it from, our federal government, and it just keeps flowing down about not good enough. And there's a really interesting statistic, Stephen, and I don't have the formal statistic top of mind, but basically, in the United States, the whole country feels like our public education system is failing, but not the school that your child goes to. And obviously those both can't be true. And obviously our innovation and our GDP can't continue to grow if our education system is completely failing. But we have a lot of negativity in it. So one of the things that we're trying to do is bring that positivity to the work on the front line. And the simple act of just saying thank you and you're doing a good job, the really basic business skills. I often share that one of the reasons my company has survived and has been successful for 30 years is that we answer the phone. Today we answer your WhatsApp message, but it's just we're responsive.
Yeah, and you're trying to bring costs down and maximize efficiencies and put money in a more thoughtful way into education, and that's why you're working with parents and the infrastructure, sort of like the management of schools, but also the student. I mean, you're seeing the entire stakeholders that are involved, right? So.
Yes, to your point, really the service at its core that we bring is shared, almost C-suite access. So a shared CFO, a shared head of marketing, chief marketing officer, a shared chief human resources officer, so that independent schools can get the benefit of high quality leadership, but it's access. We don't come in and tell you how to do things. Really what we do is say, here are the best practices, and you can pick and choose from those so that your independent school truly is independent and embodies your community, or
So
the people who created it.
So you're sort of offering then fractional services then, like CXO services? That's really interesting.
I mean, and I have to say that, Stephen, I've developed that description of it over time. But at the end of the day, and again, if our audience is, business driven or business minded, that's really is what it comes down to is fractional services.
Yeah, but the advantage then is you can get best of breed, right?
You get best of breed. And one of the things that we do that I do think is very unique as the industry is we work very hard to not be siloed. So often that you can have outstanding instructional staff, but they don't have any understanding of how the finances work in their organization and the connection between, grant access to grant funding. And so we work very hard to break down those silos, and we have all those portfolio groups, finance, human resources, instruction at the table together. You get all of us.
I'm just kind of brainstorming. We're coming to the close of our chat here, but do you work with the Computer Science Teachers Association? It's a community of about 22,000, 25,000 teachers, and they've come together to kind of optimize education. Do you work with them at all?
I don't, but you as you've come to know me, any introduction or any thoughts are always welcome. It's such a huge industry, just focused in the US, Stephen, and obviously there's the global platform. Our primary focus right now is literally the individual schools that we're serving.
Yeah, but that could work with this. So I'm on the board, I've been on the board of practitioner board of the ACM for almost 12 years, I guess, right? Past chair. But the ACM, we're the largest computing science organization in the world, and we help found this teachers organization for K-12. So I know the executive director, so happy to do an introduction. You never know where it's going to go. Well, why not? Right?
Love it. And again, I think what is different that educators in a traditional setting don't think about is breaking down those silos. I mean, again, for me, it's just like a large corporation. We've all dealt with huge corporations where one arm doesn't interact with the other arm at all. That happens at your local school district all the time.
And then Infosys and the Infosys Foundation, they have a skills development program where they work at schools and things as that as well. And a friend of mine, Tan Murthy, used to head it up, and he's on the board of Million Peacemakers, which Steve had.
Yeah.
But he's a friend. I've known him for, I don't know, 13 years. It may be worth a conversation with him as well.
I'd enjoy that.
So we're at the end of our engagement here today. And are there sort of recommendations you want to give out to the audience in the remaining couple of minutes?
Well, I think I'm going to go back to our statement about about language. And I would just share, when you have a reaction to a word that someone uses, to take the moment. I mean, I think especially in the impact space where Stephen, you and I are engaged, people have physical reactions sometimes to hearing a word, whether it's coming through the television set to you, through a podcast. I would say, pause and try to really then put it into the context, because I think that it's far more positivity than negative. At least that's my experience.
Well, it's pretty good experience, right? So you're probably the wisest person I've ever met. So
oh, you're so kind. You're so kind. I love doing this with you. I need you to give me that pat on the back every once in a while. I appreciate it.
So thank you again for sharing so many of your insights with our audience, and you do such wonderful work. So again, thank you.
Stephen, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the brand called You Videocast and Podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.